As obvious by the title Tyranny, we're not playing the good guys in this game. We are in fact playing minions of the bad guys. We're not in charge, of course. That'd be too powerful, and that you can't have that. You can't start off as the king of the big bads. There'd be no story otherwise. However, we are the minions of the big bads. We get to go around being as evil as we want to be. However, we'll kind of let the story evolve on its own. See how evil we want to be. See what acts of tyranny. See the title? There we go. We wish to partake in, and hopefully have a fun time along the way.
Graven Ash, Archon of War and the Overlord's most loyal general, leads the disfavored. Though small in number, Kairos' ironclad legion has never met true defeat in open battle.
They say true defeat because the asterisk allows them to get away with much.
You were among the youngest of the court of Fatebinders when Kairos' armies came to our lands. How could we have known that the fate of thousands would rest in your hands?
That's simple. I'm the protagonist. The fate of thousands always is going to end up resting in my hands. Nothing you can really do about that, but that's acceptable. Because as you can see, I've got a really nice loincloth. I mean, there's always two ways you go about character creation. Either it's a dude or female in a loincloth just sitting there looking at you. Or you have this really stylized, overgeared figure showing you the late game gear you could have, and then you walk out of character creation wearing like a loincloth and a sack shirt. There's really no in between. We want to be a twig, a tall twig, a short, stocky man, or a thick boy. Let's go with Mr. Thickums. And as always, we're going to be as pale as can be, because we're gamers. We don't see the light of day ever. I mean, it's not really an impressive sounding name, but considering how I was raised, probably as a, probably on the street, probably not a whole lot to my name. Makes sense I'd be given some sort of nickname instead of a real name. Maybe orphan, maybe raised, forced to raise up by myself. So Tooth, yeah, it makes sense. Gives some character and story to this guy. Well, honestly, given my background as a criminal, I'm probably not a big fan of war. I know how brutal and difficult violence can be, so doing this gives me a very high likelihood of bad things happening. However, a nice cushy job as a war advisor where I just have to oversee some smiths, that, my friends, that sounds like I've made it. That sounds like a retirement sort of job. So we're going to go with that one. I don't want to deal with a cult. I know that they cause problems in fantasy settings like this. So being a smart street rat like myself, I must not do that. Let's just step away. So instead, we'll go ahead and conscript the local beastmen to work as laborers. That way we do not have to do any of the work ourselves. And most importantly, there's only a little bit of people from the disfavored that are less than satisfied, but whatever. I'm a bad guy. If I end up having to sacrifice a few laborers along the way because they got rowdy, that's fine. That's fine. The goal of sellswords, because they work for money, is to give them a reason beyond money to work for you. Otherwise, if the enemy has more cash and they're offering them more to fight against you, they'll switch sides. So what you have to do is align not only their pockets to your cause, but align their morals and their ideas and their friendships to your cause as well. They're much less likely to betray you if they know the merriment and enjoyment they can get from your army, as opposed to joining the enemy, where they're just going to be sent to the front lines to effectively get stabbed. People, as it turns out, don't like getting stabbed. Instead, as for the pick of the army, I'm going to remain neutral. I'll take the bribes, a little bit here and there, but overall, I am not going to accept anything too big to keep myself from being, well, going on either side. I'll rather remain neutral and kind of sell to both sides, or profiteering and all that. It's a crime, but because I'm the one who makes the laws, who objects? Who can object but me? There's arguments to be made for both sides. The disfavored, not the disfigured, they probably are disfigured after coming back from the war front, but the disfigured, I get disfavored, are nice because they're professional military, they know what they're doing, they're serious in their craft, So they are definitely a better people to act as guardsmen. However, for the Scarlet Chorus, they are people who were basically recruited out of their home, being told to serve or not, and you know what happens when they're not. But because they're the average men and women, some of them might be rather angry with this whole thing, which could cause them to cause harm to us. It's unlikely, considering they know the ramifications of their actions. But what's more likely is these average men and women would like a home to return to. Just somewhere to stick around, hang out, and not have to go to the brutal fighting on the front lines, but somewhere much more peaceful and relaxed that they can actually live and maybe even enjoy themselves in the years to come. So it's hard to say which one is to choose. It's looking like this is the military fortress, this is the food, and this is the city of treasure. So, as much as I love treasure, I know that if you don't have anything to spend it on, it's much less value. Yes, knowledge and secrets is nice. However, the city of Azure, not only do I get to interact with a new Archon, which is generally a good idea, if possible, assuming they're not, a cult, but he who controls food controls the armies. So if I want to get myself risen up in position or better myself by being friends with everybody, once again, I control the iron, and now if I control the food as well, I control basically everything an army needs to function. So I'm going to go to Azure. There is one thing to note. Tooth, of course being raised as a street man, knows the value of his own life quite well. And, of course, as the story goes, once I am no longer among the living, it doesn't really matter what happens to the world afterwards. I'm loyal insofar as they keep me alive, they keep me sheltered, and they give me food. So, I have no problem sending both armies in, because if I can't get the edict in time, then woe is me, the war is done for my part, I've done everything I can. However, if we have a problem with sending one of the armies and he's not delayed for long enough, well, we're in trouble in that case. Plus, in this situation, if I only need to do half the armies, and half of them die off, then no harm, no foul, you're both equally as destroyed. So I think this is the fairest way to keep things from being too bad. Almost an hour in, and we're finally through character creation and background generation. Now we actually get to play the game in earnest. You can tell it's a good game when you don't actually start playing, really, until at least an hour in.
31. Violating an oath of surrender from 2 years prior, we have staged a bloody uprising, murdering the disfavored and Scarlet Chorus garrison in a midnight assault.
There are reasons why you don't break the rules of surrender. It's mostly because if you surrender once and you break it, you don't get the option to break the rules of surrender a second time. There is no surrender. You are dealt with to the last man and woman. There is nothing left after you break the rules. So don't do it, especially because you were put down so easily the first time. After you accept the rule, eventually life will likely get better. But if you do this, there is no going back. So consider all the consequences of your actions before you do this. Another thing, if it's been months as we've been attacking the city, that means presumably we've been sieging them, not letting any supplies get in or out. What I'm curious about is how much food do they have stockpiled that they're able to survive months without restocking? We could probably just wait a little longer and we have them. But given this current edict where, hey, do it or fall over, well, we really don't have the ability to hold off a siege for that much longer. So some people just get too impatient, especially when they're sitting on their very nice throne. 30 athletics, so I do not have it. I believe our friend here does. Fortunately, she does not have the required 39 subterfuge. I think we can attack it. There should be... One thing I'll say, and when designing video games like this, if you see a treasure chest and you cannot open it, bashing open the treasure chest should always be an option, at the risk of possibly destroying the contents inside. I don't understand why games used to do that, and they no longer do, but it's definitely something that should be considered, because in real life, I just bash open that chest. No harm, no foul. I think your life ends here. No, I can explain. How'd you know he was lying? His lips are... Wow, how do you know a Tierman is lying? His lips are moving. My goodness. That is certainly a line and a half.
Someday I'll fall in battle, and then they'll roll me into a mass grave or heap me atop a shit-stained wagon. One more anonymous, knife-riddled piece of meat.
I can respect that. I can respect that. Go out doing what you love. What happens afterwards is not all that important. I think Tooth gets along with her quite well. What are your thoughts on the disfavored? Self-entitled children who so wounded up in the delusion of honor they're likely to hang themselves in their own high standards. Wish they had stayed in the Northern Empire where they belonged. Along with some real work done in the tiers. I have to say, the writers have done a fantastic job with this game. There are so many lines, even just in the little bit that I've played so far, that are just awesome lines that really just make a story great. Such as this one.
I've traveled with the chorus for years. I've seen what the voices can do, and it scares me, all right? The idea that everything I am could be reduced to that. If I had that kind of power, if I could become like him, I don't know how I could live with myself. I'd rather drown myself in a camp latrine.
You don't have to become like him, just be selective.
I'm sure he had the same idea when he got started. But you know what they say about power? It's usually wielded by assholes.
That, my lady, is a true statement. True, true, true. I said eyes on your opponent's waistline. If you spend more time glancing at his footwork, you've lost. Yeah, you really don't want to check their waistline. You really want to kind of check their center of body. Because at that point, you can check both their arms, see if they're moving. You can keep an eye on the shoulders. And then you also have the waistline to determine where the hips are moving, which way they're planning to swing. Really, if you check the core of the torso, you can see everything that you need to see in battle. Though it's been a hot minute since I've done any dueling with swords, so don't quote me on that. But that's just my thoughts on the matter. Though magic, of course, does put a wrench into those plans.
Thanks for watching. You should watch another. Please.